Okay, hello everybody. I would like to introduce Danielle. She is a fitness coach that is plant-based and is an awesome powerhouse in the industry that is also uplifting other women and uplifting amazing people to live their best lives and to improve their health while being plant-based. So I wanted to have her on today to tell us a little bit about her journey and what it's been like to be a plant-based coach and also to be a fitness fanatic and be as fit and beautiful and gorgeous and strong and build that muscle while eating plant-based, because the number one question is, where do you get your protein? So I would love you to please just introduce yourself, and then I'll go ahead in with some questions. And anybody who has any questions, please post them in the chat right now, or as you think of them, post them in the chat and we'll get to them. This is a great opportunity to ask any questions as far as fitness or plant-based or veganism goes. But let's just get started and hear Danielle's story and how she became, I guess, plant-based and into fitness. You know what to say.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. So I do want to preface this whole thing that I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a doctor. Anything I tell you is not nutritional advice. It's just my own experience. I'm happy to answer questions based on my own experience, but I just have to put that little disclaimer out there because I do run a business doing this. So I want to make sure everything's cool. So that being said, I have an insane story. It would take me 3 hours to tell you the whole thing, but in a nutshell, it was something along the lines of grew up in an abusive household, lots of trauma, lots of crazy stress. I ended up moving out at 17, finished high school early, got into really heavy drugs, alcohol. I was in the adult industry. I was a stripper for a while, like just life crazy, unmanaged, right? And in 2012, it was like the end of 2012, everything kind of came to a crashing halt. Now, this was obviously over years of building up all these crazy things, but it went from drugs, alcohol, crazy partying, like Playboy Mansion stuff. I was doing modeling. I was like, everything was just fast. And I had a bunch of things that kind of led to me losing everything. I became homeless. I had a couple overdoses on some pretty heavy drugs. I mean, everything was done. My health was terrible, obviously. And it was the first time that I had a major wake up call that was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, there have been so many consequences. And the consequences were never really enough. But when my life was just kind of forced to stop, that was the only thing that stopped me. So thank God I listened to that. I went to detox. I went to rehab. That was all in 2012. And then from there, like, I've always been somewhat athletic. I was in cheer when I was a kid. I competed in snowboarding. Like, I was always kind of like moving around. But like I said, the other side of me wasn't healthy at all. So when I came to San Diego, this was all kind of in LA. I came to San Diego and kind of changed my life around. And in doing so, I got more into doing like healthier things, right? Like, I got off the drugs, I got off the alcohol, got a regular job, like everything was kind of coming together. And I'd say that I was like pretty healthy for a while, like especially compared to standard American diet. Like, I was pretty healthy. I was like veggies, chicken, brown rice, like a lot of whole foods. I didn't eat fast food anymore. And then what was it, in 2000, I believe it was 15, I had a really big scare. It was thyroid cancer. And yeah, it was 2015. And of course, all these things start going through my head. Was this my terrible lifestyle that I lived before? Did I do this to myself? Like, what the heck's going on? And at the time, I was taking 19 units in college. I was a math major. Like, stress was through the roof. I was working at a restaurant, all these crazy hours. And that was another moment in my life that was like, Danielle, stop. Like, you got to slow down, right? So in this diagnosis, as I was waiting for tests to come back and waiting for the surgery appointment to come up, I started doing some research on what stimulates cancer cell growth. And I kept coming across these articles that were talking about the acidity that was in animal products, milk, all forms of dairy, meat, everything like that, and the relationship that had to cancer cell growth. And so as I was doing this, it was just, I happened to stumble across another video on YouTube that was called Vegucated. And it was a documentary talking about some vegan athletes. It was before Game Changers, and it was a lot more mild than Game Changers, but it also showed some footage of factory farming. And it was like right around that same time, everything came together. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm doing this. I'm going to try this thing. Now, thank God. And I knew nothing about being vegan at the time. I barely even knew the word. Now, right around this time, like I said, I'm still waiting for the surgery. Thank God. Everybody always asks me, like, did you go through chemo, radiation? No, I had a really, really lucky experience. I had half my thyroid removed. I didn't even end up needing thyroid medication because the other half took on full, it basically took over. So I didn't need to have any medication. And through this, I kept on researching. And I think I even went raw for a little bit then, because I was just looking at like the alkalinity of all the greens and like the higher nutrients and all this stuff. I'm not currently raw now. I am fully plant-based though. And I don't know. I think that's kind of where the beginning of the vegan journey started. And then I started a vegan podcast, which is where I really learned a lot, because I interviewed a lot of doctors and professional athletes, and some of the people that were in the documentary Game Changers were on there. And I just really got to learn a lot about other people and how they were living. And so I think that's where the base of my knowledge came from. And then it wasn't until this year that I actually decided to get certified in nutrition, which I don't have it yet. I'm working on that right now, and personal training. And then I switched from my old marketing job to personal training and one-on-one coaching and stuff. So my whole idea, like I never try to force anybody to be vegan or anything, but just like, let's get some more plants in your diet. Let's look at what you're eating. Let's get you off the standard American diet and into something that's a little bit more sustainable. And then let's talk about exercise. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I'm in awe.
It's a lot.
No, it's not a lot. I absorbed all of it. It's just so amazing. And I didn't know all of that backstory. And it's really cool. Those of you who don't know how Danielle and I met, we met on Instagram, as I meet everyone these days. And we just, met each other on Instagram. I think I commented on one of your things, and I thought you were cool. And I was like, hey, let's link up. Let's do something together. And then we missed each other a bunch of times. We kept making appointments and kept missing each other. And at that point, both of us could have just been like, never mind. But we pushed through. And now she has a podcast specifically for women, plant-based women, plant-based business owners, or something?
So the first podcast was all vegans. It was, men, women, whatever. The second one that I started that you were on is women entrepreneurs. So I still talk a little bit about being vegan, but it's more about starting businesses and maintaining them.
Yeah. So that's how we met. And I just did a podcast on hers. So we should definitely send you guys a link of that, because that's about me, but you guys know about me. So we'll talk about Danielle. You got a bunch of love from Robin. Robin says, very inspirational. He says, Danielle, love your story. Thank you so much. That's so inspirational.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like you came from a really challenging upbringing and background, and it kind of forced you. And then on top of that, had a health challenge, and that forced you to learn about being more healthy, and then somehow you stumbled around veganism. At what point did you realize that this was what was working and what you wanted to do? Because there's a lot of different things that you could have done.
Yeah. I don't really know. It's funny. A lot of people say, did you feel a bunch of changes? Did all these like crazy things happen? Did you get weaker in the gym? Because I was, working out pretty heavy at the time. I didn't really notice any huge really huge changes, other than my digestion got better, probably because the added fiber. I did have really bad acne on my face, and that went away. And, a lot of that is probably because of dairy once I started looking into that. And then as far as like strength or energy, I'd say probably the first 4 or 5 days, I was feeling a little bit slower at first. But like I mentioned to somebody earlier, a lot of that has to do with like detoxing your body, getting rid of a lot of toxins. And then I had like way too much energy. It was like bouncing off the walls, and like, I was kind of hungry at first because there's a lot more fiber in plants. It doesn't sit in your gut as long as animal products do. So my body took a little bit of time to get used to it. But over time, I you know, I can't see there was anything like I wasn't overweight before, so I didn't have like a weight fluctuation or anything like that. But I also didn't have any fluctuation in like losing muscle or like, you know, a lot of the things that people say, oh, you don't get enough protein or any of these things. So, yeah, you're muted.
I'm muted.
There you are.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think that's interesting because sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, like it changed everything. And other people, it's like, I watched this movie, it just felt right, and I stuck with it. And that's even more, that's beautiful as well, because it's like, it just kind of resonates with you, and it allows you to, like, how much more wonderful is that? Because other people really struggle with it and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. To be able to be like, that you pushed into it and you just felt like it was right, that's something that we should all kind of tap into ourselves. And especially in a time of stress and where things are happening and things are changing, to be able, I feel that you really tap into your truth when you're in that space. So that's probably what happened to an extent. So now the big ticket question, and anybody who has questions, please do. But my question, I think that a lot of people want to know from you, is about training and about fitness. So this is like the big question that I've been getting recently is, hey, I feel like I'm doing this raw diet, I'm losing weight, I'm feeling good, but like, am I losing muscle mass? I feel like I am. And how do I stop that from happening? What food should I be eating more of, and what quantity and what variety, and also, and when, and what exercise is the best? Not necessarily wanting to be a trainer, but just wanting to stay physically fit.
Yeah, so we'll kind of go back to the point that was made earlier about carbohydrates being a source of energy. And like I said too, I don't have as much experience on raw food diets, but I will tell you, just like the basics are, if you're not getting enough calories, you're not getting enough carbohydrates, you're going to feel more tired. And when I'm talking about carbohydrates, I'm not talking about processed foods. I'm not talking about simple, basically processed carbohydrates or certain fruits. But what I am talking about is the complex carbs. And what complex carbs are is they're carbohydrates that contain fiber. So things like oats, like certain fruits, berries, things like that. And a lot of people, like, I don't know, I'm still kind of like going through this whole thing because there's so many studies out there, and there's so many plant-based doctors that say one side and then other doctors say other things. I'm coming to this conclusion that if you're not training, like I'm training for a fitness competition right now. So like my goals are a little bit different, but if you're just the average person, or you're just someone that wants to like slim down a little, or like have a lifestyle change, I'm really being convinced that there's not really this huge need of like, you got to get all this protein. I think most people have an issue with calories, like eating too many calories, or maybe on raw food too little if they're feeling low energy or not feeling like they want to exercise, especially once they're a few weeks in, if they're still feeling that way. And because I brought up the protein issue, because this is a really big issue in the community, of course, there's a lot of different guidelines online. It seems to me like the kind of standard, according to like a lot of the scientific research, is like 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, not pound, kilogram. So you have to convert that. Bodybuilders are a lot more. It's usually closer to 2.2, 1.8 to 2.2, kind of depending. But I would say that the average American gets plenty enough, and like nobody really needs to worry about like extra protein. For me now, because I am training towards a bigger goal, I do track a lot of my things. I use an app called MyFitnessPal. And I just so I know, I stay within a caloric range every day. And I think you had mentioned a question about, what was it, if they were not losing body fat?
Muscle mass.
Muscle mass, yeah.
They feels like potentially where they're losing the weight, want to make sure that that's losing body fat and not muscle mass.
Right. So one thing I would recommend, if you guys have access to it, it might be hard to find, but if you can find a gym that has something like, it's called InBody. There's also some other brands that are out there, but it's a machine that you hold the little calipers. It's pretty close to the most accurate thing you can get without doing these really expensive equipment. And it measures your body fat. It measures your skeletal muscle mass. It measures your water weight. There's a ton of things that are in there. And what I do is stick to like a very consistent diet for like a week. Like you're eating at the same time of the day, Same thing for breakfast, same thing for lunch, same thing for dinner. I know it can be really boring, but it's the best way to get a good calibration of what's going on. And then do it again, the test in another week to really see, like, are you really losing muscle mass, or maybe you're just tired so you feel weaker so you think it's muscle mass. But once again, I think a lot of this just goes back to calories. A lot of people, when they're trying to lose weight, they undereat a lot, and they might lose some weight in the beginning, but usually people plateau after that. And the big part of that is because your body needs that energy to survive. And if it doesn't have that energy, sometimes it can start eating away at other things like muscles, because muscles do take more energy to keep going. Like, the higher your muscle mass is, the more calories you burn every day. So your body will naturally start to eliminate some of the muscle mass to reserve some of the energy. And that's what a lot of people will see if they cut their calories too low. In my experience, and with like a lot of the clients that I've worked with, it's usually that they're on too low of a calorie. And so their body starts eating away at that, or because a lot of people, they'll cut their calories down, but then they'll eat really crappy foods. So it's like, oh, I'm only eating 1,000 calories a day, but 500 of it is from processed, Oreos or whatever the heck they're eating. So they're not getting the nutrients to sustain either. So I guess, long story short, I would just say, if like, there's this saying, eat the rainbow. And it's like, it just talking about eating different colored fruits and vegetables throughout the day, like a serving, right? And those are where all the phytonutrients are. Those are the things that'll keep your bodies going and your cells healthy. And I really feel that, like, as long as you're hitting your calories, you should be fine. Now, a lot of people say then, well, how many calories should you be eating? There's obviously, every person is very different. It depends on gender. It depends on body mass. It depends on age. Like, there's a bunch of factors, but what I would recommend to get a general idea of where you should be at, you can go online, type in BMR calculator. BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. And that's basically the amount of calories that you individually burn at rest. So like, no exercise, no nothing, the amount of energy it takes to keep you sustaining for a day. And what I recommend is going about 200 calories under that and seeing how that goes for like a week. Usually the calculators online are within a couple hundred calories without knowing everything about you, your muscle mass and stuff. But that'll kind of give you an idea of where you should be at. And if you're eating whole foods, you're probably hitting all the markers as far as like staying under a certain amount of fat or having enough carbohydrates and enough protein. So just for a basic recommendation.
That's amazing. So I like that. So the BMR test, we can just find that online, and that'll help.
Yeah, I put one on my website. I'm going to have to make a link on the homepage so it's easier to find. But if you go, it's vegandanielle.com. And then I think it's under resources, and then simple swaps. I have like some recipes on there. I'm adding some more. I think there's only 3 on there right now, but in the whole description, there's a thing that says there's an actual little calculator embedded into it. You can just type in your stuff and it gives you like a rough idea.
Okay. I have the link. I'm going to post it in here right now.
Oh, thank you.
I'm with you. Okay. I have the link of simple swaps, and we'll have to just find it within there.
It's down the page a little bit. Yeah.
All right, cool. So that's awesome and super helpful, and basically answered my question really well. I know I just want to give you a pass because I've been asked this question a lot of times. And the truth is, I kind of like the fact that you're still in learning phase right now, because the people who are in expert phase, sometimes they're just like stuck in their ways, and there's so much new stuff every single day, and there's so many different philosophies. That's not kind of the stage that I like to stay in, despite the fact that I'm leading this group. I'm still in learning phase 100%, and I always will be, and everyone always will be. So like that, I don't think that there's any kind of like, you shouldn't be, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're still in learning and you're still gathering, and not to say you have an absolute answer, because at this point there is no absolute answer. Which is annoying because we like absolute answers. But the truth is that the goal is to feel good. If you find that you're not feeling good, then we need to try and figure out what that's from. So I'm just going to go through, before I ask more questions, some of the questions that are here. Danielle, do you notice a difference in your training recovery after going vegan?
That is a big one. Yeah. I will say that recovery is quicker. Now, I'll just give a brief explanation of why I think this is happening to me and happens to a lot of people. In general, animal products, like we mentioned fiber earlier, do not contain fiber. They are also much harder to digest because of the fiber and just because of what they are. And when things are very hard for us to digest, our body uses that energy to go to digestion rather than fueling our bodies. Now, I'm not saying like a little piece of chicken is going to hurt you, but if you're on a standard American diet where you're eating, you know, a hamburger here and there, you might be having pork chops or bacon or more eggs than you probably should. That can really negatively impact your recovery, because instead of your body focusing on repairing the muscles during exercise, your muscles go through little tiny tears, which are good tears. I'm not talking about injuries, but they go through little tiny tears and they build up during recovery. And if your body is spending so much time digesting foods that are hard to digest, it doesn't have as much time to focus on recovery. And therefore you can become very sleepy or not get proper recovery. So I would say for me, I feel that like the recovery process is a lot faster. It has been like 5.5 years, so I don't remember the exact comparison, but I kind of feel like, I mean, lately I've been more tired because I'm going through so many trainings and a really strict diet. But I would say for the most part, it's been like I get pretty good sleep. I'm up and energized in the morning. So
That's awesome. Thank you. That was Shoshana's question. Thank you, Shoshana. I have a question before I forget. This is a big question. This is a good question. What do you eat?
what do I eat?
Yeah,
okay,
what is
so,
a day or
like,
a week in the life is preferable, but let's just start with a day in the life.
Okay. Well, I will say that my days are very similar and regimented right now. Like I said, so the competition I'm training for it's a stage competition. So it's like, I'm sure you guys have seen like the girls in the bikinis on the stage. It's my first one. I'm training for that now. So it is like, it's in September. So it's extremely like, you have to be watching everything.
Yeah.
So mine are really boring meals right now. You guys can be a little bit more exciting than this, but I will say that like, I love, like in the morning, I'll do oats with like blueberries, a little bit of stevia. I choose stevia because it's 0 or close to 0 calories. And I do the like unprocessed kind, like the actual ground stevia leaves. I've been staying away from salt, but a little bit of salt in there is pretty good. And then I'll do just like a cup of blueberries or a cup of blackberries or something like that. A little bit of cinnamon, usually mixed. Lately, I've been doing water just because of the calories, but it's much better if you do like a vanilla almond milk or something like that. And really, it's only about like 60 to 80 calories a cup if it's unsweetened, so it's not that bad.
My sesame milk, you guys can use the sesame milk that's in my recipe plan.
Ooh, yes.
Which I can teach you about.
Great.
That's literally just putting sesames into a blender, grinding it up, and squeezing it out. We'll put a little vanilla extract and a little stevia, and you're good to go.
Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna try that too. That's awesome. And healthy fats too. For lunch and dinner. So lunch and dinner are kind of similar, but for one of them, it'll be like usually some sort of tofu stir fry minus the rice and or noodles. So it's literally just like I get the extra firm tofu, cube it up. I put a little bit of cooking spray on the pan, but I try not to use too much of that. And I just get it really hot and drain the water out of the tofu before I cut it. So it's like, you put it between some paper towels and you can kind of put something heavy on top of it, let some of the water come out of it so it browns easier. And I really like it crispy. So I'll just throw all the cubes in the pan and let them get there, almost black, like pretty dark brown. Stir them up a few times. I'll throw in like carrots and broccoli and maybe like soybeans if I have some, or you could do cauliflower, you could do anything really. And then I don't use any like sauce or anything like that. But since you guys aren't being as strict as me, feel free to use a little bit of low sodium soy sauce, even though low sodium has high sodium. So be careful.
Coconut aminos.
That's a good one. And that's really sweet too. Those ones are really good. And then dinner is usually something like a giant salad made with spinach and romaine and a ton of chopped veggies. I like tomatoes and cucumbers and carrots. And sometimes I'll even like saute some carrots or something to give like a little bit of warmth to the salad. And then I'll do like maybe a 1/4 cup of like hemp seeds or something. Like those tend to be high calories. They're good fats, but like I said, once again, because I'm being so strict, that's why I'm not saying you have to be as strict as me, but that, or like sometimes I'll do sunflower seeds or something too, if I have some calories to spare. Pretty simple stuff. I will say
I
that.
love this. I love this because it is simple. It's actually like pretty similar to what I prescribe, just like the most simple meals, like morning. I've put like chia seed pudding in the morning or like a smoothie in the morning. Afternoon salad. I haven't gotten into like cooked tofu yet. And Samantha just asked, have you tried sprouted tofu? I have not. So I don't even know what that really would look like, but I'm definitely interested. If anyone has, please post, but I definitely have not. Oh, tempeh. No, not tempeh. Tempeh is fermented tofu. So that is better in my book. Definitely tempeh is better because it's fermented. So that's those of you who are looking to do tofu. Do you like tempeh?
I do. I haven't bought it in a while. When you were saying that, I was like, wait, is that, because I always get tempeh and seitan mixed up, and I'm like, wait, seitan is wheat protein,
Not
and
seitan,
I
yeah.
haven't had it in a while.
Yeah, tempeh. I didn't used to like tempeh either, but there's a lot of controversy on tofu, and like weird
I know.
controversy on tofu. I don't think that it could be that bad, but definitely there's a lot of like GMOs in soy, and I think that that's usually where it's coming from. So
Get
when
it
you
organic.
ferment it, yeah, get it organic and fermented. Fermented is always better, and that's like across the board. I went to a naturopathic community doctors like panel, and they talked about soy at this naturopathic doctor panel, which was really cool. And like that was like pretty much the consensus was just get fermented, get the tempeh,
Yeah.
because that you can't go bad with that. So that's for my people, but no judgment here. I also want to do a disclaimer that my program is a raw vegan cleanse, pushing you towards like figuring out what your lifestyle is going to be long term. If it's plant-based, even if it's not plant-based, if it's not raw, whatever it is, this is a place for you to just exactly what you said, bring more plants in. So I want to make that clear, that no one should feel like it has to only be raw vegan here that we're talking. Like, yes, we're on a raw vegan cleanse, but this is a space for anybody who's on this journey to explore.
I like that somebody had just put in the comments about a Japanese store. So I will say that, yes, that's one of the best places that you could get a lot of the tofus, and go organic. That's the one thing that you do organic, do tofu. It's not even that much more at most places. Also, depending on where you live, we have Costco out here. Costco carries the house food brand organic tofu. It's very reasonably priced. Ends up being about $1 a container afterwards. So It's not bad.
Yeah. So my question to you would be like, because I know you're really strict, and as far as just curious, what's the quantity at which you're eating? Like when you have the oats in the morning and the berries, how much oats?
So I will say that I just recently adjusted from like breakfast, lunch, and dinner to 5 smaller meals. And the reason that I did that was because, number one, it was like a little bit of a dispersion of calories and macros. So your macros are your protein, carbs, and fat, just so that it was spaced out a little more, because my calories are really low now compared to what they were. And I was noticing I was feeling super tired, and I still kind of am. I think I'm
low
getting
calories for you? What's low calories?
So I'll just give you an idea. So I'm 5'6" ish, almost 5'7". I'm 150 pounds. And I am at about 1,400 a day. So I don't recommend that, especially if you're doing heavy exercise. That's about 300 calories under my basal metabolic rate, the BMR, what my body needs to sustain in a day. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I'm cutting for this competition. But I would say try to stick closer to what your BMR is. I think that if you didn't know and you didn't do the calculator, that it would be safe to say, depending on your height, weight, age, it's probably, for females, probably somewhere between like 12 and 1,800. I know that's a really big range, but like shouldn't be, I wouldn't want people going too much under that or too much over that. Men can afford to eat a lot more. They have a lot more muscle mass than us, and they use calories much more efficiently than we do. But yeah, I can't remember if there was something else to that question.
That's my question. I am concerned. My concern is for the men or the people who are training, that they are getting enough calories. So it's never really been a concern because, at these raw vegan institutes, there's very little. It's mostly just juices and sprouts and this and that. And my program in particular is definitely well balanced. But I think for a cleansing period, it's 100% healthy and good.
Yes.
For a long-term maintenance of what can I eat to maintain my brain health, to maintain my muscle mass, this is what I want to make sure that we have the right amount of fiber and we have the right amount of protein and the right calories for each person.
Yeah.
And what is something like I actually am wondering what's like a case study or or an example of a customer or a client of yours that you helped to go more plant-based or to do fitness, and what are some things that you recommended for them to eat to help them on that journey? I don't know if that's a good question, but do you know where I'm
No, for
going?
sure. So what I always try to tell people is like people have their favorite foods, right? And like what they're kind of their go-to, and it might be something mom made when they were a kid, or just something that they just really crave, and it's usually something along the lines of pizza or spaghetti, or something that's not necessarily healthy. And I tell them, let's pick this and then kind of reinvent it. So if somebody really likes pizza, well, we can obviously recreate this with no cheese. Now, I will say that I personally try not to, well, I don't eat any processed vegan products right now other than tofu. But even before I was training, I would say keep those kind of lower. So some of the plant-based cheeses are amazing, just don't have that every day. And same with like the plant-based meats. But I'm like, let's start with something like this, and we can cut the calories down a lot too by removing some of these things. So maybe we do like a flatbread instead of like a big crust pizza, and we just use plain marinara that's 30 calories a serving, and then we don't no cheese on it, and we can just do a ton of roasted veggies and put that in the oven. So I'm not saying that's the healthiest choice, but it's like a little couple steps forward from where people are used to eating things. And then like we go back to the whole stir fry thing, and people say, oh, beef and broccoli is my favorite thing. Okay, well, let's do a smaller portion of rice. We'll do a big portion of broccoli, maybe throw some carrots in there. And then instead of the beef, or if you're not ready to go plant-based yet, let's just bring that down a little and maybe choose a leaner meat like chicken or shrimp or something like that. I would say for a lot of people that aren't interested in going vegan yet, or maybe they're just kind of in this transition period, that if I had to recommend an animal product, that my go-to would be fish. The reason I say that is just because it's a very lean protein, and it's very low in calories. Obviously, like me being vegan, it's, I'm not suggesting like you should all be eating fish, but I am saying that if you're going to pick some sort of meat to eat, that would definitely be a better choice for you. That's kind of, and like going through those transitions with people.
So that's really important. I do the same thing as like just trying to meet people where they're at, and I think that's really helpful. I'm kind of curious more so on like the question of, do you ever get the question of, am I getting enough? And when you do, how do you answer that? Like,
am I getting enough protein?
Am I getting enough of everything? Like, now I'm not eating big meat. Am I getting enough? Like, how do I know that I'm getting enough? What's your general answer to that?
My general answer is show me what you've eaten. So I go back to the fitness apps. MyFitnessPal is what I use. And like, I tell all of my new clients, I want you to track everything starting today. I don't care. Like, we're not going on the diet today. We might be starting that next week, but I need a baseline for you. And people, they cheat all the time. I get it. I've been there, but like everything. I don't care if you had one Oreo. I don't care if you had one orange. You're putting everything in there for a whole week. I want to get an idea of what you're eating. And then we go through and we make little changes, because most people that I work with are too many calories, too high in fat, too processed stuff. But something like an app, like
you put every single thing into an app.
I have them do it. Yeah. And then
which app is it? The fitness?
MyFitnessPal.
And you have to pay for that, or?
Nope, it's free.
And that really tells you everything, all the calories and protein and whatnot in there. And then for them, if it's good, or if it's the right amount, like, is that based on the BMR? You look at their
yeah, and the gym that I work out of, we do have one of those InBody machines where they hold the little calipers, and their feet are on a separate thing, and it measures, skeletal muscle mass and fat content, and it even does visceral fat, and like everything that's on the visceral fat is your fat that's around your organs. That should be very low. Otherwise you could have some major health concerns there. And then it does like what your BMI is and how much fat, your body fat percentage. And so I kind of go, and on there, it does give you a BMR, a more accurate BMR. And so I always kind of tell them, for the clients that are looking to lose fat, is let's just go a few hundred calories under what your BMR is, start incorporating some exercise. And I don't even focus on protein, fat, or carbs in the beginning. I just focus on let's get the calories down. So we'll make simple little swaps here and there. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't really think that like focusing on huge amounts of protein, especially for somebody that can afford to lose like 50 pounds or even 25 pounds, I don't really think that like the protein is the biggest concern. I think it's the calories that are the biggest concern. Now, when we're in a phase where they're training to be more of an athlete or they're trying to build more muscle, it does become a little bit more of a priority. But I will say also that the muscles use more energy to sustain, so thus burning more calories. So the higher your muscle mass, the more calories you will burn. So that's one of the things a lot of women especially say, well, I don't want to get big and muscular like you. And I don't want, I just want to get a little small. You're not going to get like me after, a few sessions like that. But I do try to get people to push heavier weight so that we can get a little bit of an enlargement in your muscles and thus reducing some of the body fat. So
amazing. Okay, you're amazing. I have so many questions. I have 2 more questions for you, and then we can go to other people's questions. If anybody needs to leave, please do. Actually, let me go through people's questions. This way, I don't have any. If anybody does need to leave, but I have so many questions for you. We'll have to do another one. So let's go back. Do you feel that plant-based diet has affected you spiritually?
Oh, that's a deep question.
real quick, go.
Yeah. That's actually, I think, a process that I'm working towards right now, is getting more into the meditative state. Like, as you guys can probably tell, I'm a pretty high energy person and I can be very like all over the place. And so that's actually something that I've been exploring a little bit more of recently. And I'm really excited to learn more about, but I would say that like, it's brought me to a place where I'm willing to explore that. I'm just not quite there.
Yes, but a lot coming from the place that you are coming from, even to be able to be thinking about that is like, coming from trauma and that kind of stuff, it's not easy to even tap into spirituality. So I would say that's a big yes. Do you take any amino acids, any supplements, vitamin C? Like, what are your main supplements that you take, if any?
I actually don't take anything. I would highly suggest against protein powders. I think somebody had mentioned something like that in the comments earlier. 90% of them, I mean, if you're a male, you can afford to have a little more calories, but 90% of them are full of fillers. Even if they're vegan, there's a lot of processed stuff in them. And for me, a protein shake doesn't fill me up to the point where I feel that I don't need dinner or lunch or something. And so it just ends up being extra calories. It's like, one glass, even if it's a really healthy one, is like 200-300 calories plus whatever almond milk or whatever I put in it. And so I just don't really need the extra calories. I feel that I can get enough from plants, like enough protein from plants. Now, if you're using it as a meal replacement, then, that might be a different story, but just try to go for something that's organic. And the sprouted ones are really good too. I know we were talking about sprouts earlier. I don't really have a huge recommendation on that. Aminos, no, I don't take any, but I don't really have anything against them. I would actually be interested in like, there's BCAAs, branched chain amino acids. I've done a lot of research in the past on those, and I'm not against them, but once again, I would just be careful to see what's added in them, because sometimes there's a lot of like processed sugars and colors and stuff you want to stay away from. I don't have any suggestions on that one.
Also, superfoods like wheatgrass and sprouts are really high in amino acids, and all of
exactly.
So I mean, this all is just a decoy to just be like, everyone eat your sprouts.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that is the missing link when it comes to fitness. The missing link when it comes to the fitness world, and especially the plant-based fitness world. Sprouts is what is what is not being talked about enough, and is a huge resource, because you have all these vitamins and minerals without having to have any processed fillers.
Exactly.
And they have such high amounts of protein and amino acids. So if you are the type of person who's looking to build muscle and looking to increase or maintain your body fat while increasing your muscle, sprouts are huge, and
spirulina,
the wheatgrass, and having high concentration of these vegetables. So like, if you're going to be eating cooked, have huge stir fries, huge salads.
Yeah.
It's about the quantity. And like, I bet you have a huge salad when you have a salad. Like, tell me with your hands, like, how big it is. Is it huge?
And it's so funny, because I had posted one on Instagram, not the salad, but I like posted what I eat in a day. And somebody was like, I copied your salad, and man, I couldn't even eat half of it. And I was like, yeah, sometimes I do break it up into 2 meals, because it is a lot of food, but with the level of fiber, it goes through you fairly quickly.
So that is really the overall answer to where do I get my protein? Where do I get my fiber? How do I make sure that I'm getting all the right things? That's what food does for you. You don't really have to worry that much about it. If you're
Right.
eating whole foods rather than processed foods, the whole foods themselves make sure that you're getting it in the in the right proportion. That is what's good about eating things as a whole food, rather
Exactly.
rather than supplementing here and there and like looking at every number of everything that you're having. If you're eating whole foods, most likely you're getting everything that you need. The only thing that you can adjust is how much you're having of it. And if you feel
Right.
hungry, just eat more. I feel like that is a basic, really, really good, simple rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Um, yes, I love that. And I appreciate your feedback because that's something that's what I've been preaching, but someone who's actually been living the life. I'm not a trainer and I don't do that kind of extensive exercise. So I can't really speak for it to know if you were to eat my lifestyle, if you would feel tired. I don't exert that much energy. So it's a question that I have. That's why I brought you on. And that
Yeah.
question really is, if you were to exert that much energy and you really want to work out a lot, can you live this raw vegan lifestyle or even a vegan lifestyle?
Vegan, yes. But I'm really curious. I was thinking the same thing earlier today as I was like scrolling through some Instagram pages that are raw vegans, and I'm like, I wonder with the level of energy that I expend every day, with the how intense my workouts are, and I some days work out twice a day, and sometimes it'll be like a 4 hour, 15-mile hike that I'm on that's burning 1,500 calories. Like, could I do that on a raw food diet? I feel like obviously in the beginning I would be pretty tired, but I'm kind of honestly thinking about the challenge because I'm curious too, since I have access to like the InBody that measures my muscle mass. Like, if I were to do this over a couple weeks, would I lose muscle mass? And if so, a significant amount? Like, I actually am not sure, but it's something I'd be interested in putting myself through an experiment with, just to kind of like see. Um,
And I will say that I do know raw vegan athletes. So I know
yeah.
that it's possible. You just have to have a crazy amount of fruit. Like, I know that they have like 10 mangoes, like
Oh
15
yeah.
bananas, like 2 watermelons for one meal. So it's like just a crazy amount, which is difficult to have. So lots of juice, this and that. But for someone, just an average person who's looking to maintain their body mass, I don't think it's an issue. I really don't.
I don't think so either.
Um, and let's see, any other good questions here I've been getting from NYU Ter. Is it true that if you have a thyroid condition, soy such as tofu affects your thyroid negatively?
Okay. This one, I mean, short answer, I don't know.
Right.
I have definitely heard this. So there is, I'm sure you've heard of the idea that soy has phytoestrogens in it. And that's just why people are afraid of like a lot of these side effects of eating it. I've watched a few studies like with plant-based doctors. They're phytoestrogens, which means they're plant estrogens, and there's such a small amount compared to the estrogen that a mammal produces that it doesn't seem that there's really an effect. There's kind of this joke around the community that if soy really had this much estrogen in it, estrogen stimulates breast growth, all the women would be eating all of it, right? And not have any boob jobs or anything out there. But in all seriousness, I don't know. I've seen studies on both sides. I would assume that, especially like a serving of tofu for me is usually like a half a block, maybe a full block throughout the day if I had it twice. Or if I'm just having a really big recovery meal after a hike or something. But I don't think that level is going to impact something like that. I haven't had any
I agree.
problems.
I agree, but I would love to look into some studies to give some more clarity on that. But like I said, from that one panel that I went to at the naturopaths, they did say that it was kind of an overstatement, the estrogen thing.
Yeah.
That it's not as much, it's not as prominent as it's gone around. Like, people just heard that, and then men got scared, and they were like, we made
Yeah.
a big deal about it, I think. That being said, if you are going to have tofu, I feel pretty strongly based on everything that I've heard, to go for the tempeh,
Hmm.
because it just seems to be much safer and healthier, because then you're getting that good probiotics for your gut.
Yeah.
Um, let's see what else. There is a survey here that Samantha left that I'd love to see what that is, if you'd like to share in a second. Um, L-arginine, that she's like,
Oh yeah. Amino acid.
yeah. Beware of chlorophyll supplements. Okay, there's a lot of beautiful chit chatting here, and you guys are amazing. Okay. So do you balance carbs with protein, and also do you use salad dressing? That's a good question, as you know.
That's a very, very, very good question, especially about the salad dressing part. I'm going to address that one first because that's where a lot of people make mistakes. They think, salad's healthy, right? And in general terms, it should be. It's just a bunch of vegetables. But the problem is a lot of people end up adding bacon and hard-boiled eggs and, maybe too many seeds or nuts even, or too many raisins, or, and your salad that you had, and then their dressing, right? That their salad ends up being 1,500, 2,000 calories. They didn't even realize that because they've added so many things on top. And is it still a salad, or is it a bunch of crap on top of lettuce? I don't know. Deconstructed hamburger, maybe. For me, I am pretty boring right now, but it's usually like I started mixing mustard with apple cider vinegar, and like I just put it in a mason jar and shake it up. It ends up being like 5 to 10 calories a serving, and I just kind of drizzle it on top. But for you guys, because you don't have to be as crazy as me, what I would recommend is do that same thing, but throw it in a blender with like a date or two, or even like a little bit of maple syrup, give it a little bit of sweetness. And it's still not that many calories. Just going to add a little bit of natural sugar to it, but that's it. And it's actually pretty good, and it's cheap as hell. Like the mustard, you get a big old bottle from Walmart for like $1, and then I guess the apple cider can add up if you're getting a good Bragg's one or something. But super easy. You can also blend up if you are needing more fat in your diet. You can blend up like any sort of seed, like sunflower seeds are really good for this, and you can like add a plant-based milk. You could add some herbs, cilantro, whatever. I always make my own dressing because every single one that's out there that I've seen so far, it just has a bunch of preservatives in it. And they're usually really high in calories because they add oil, and I don't add oil to mine. So I would just say make your own. It's pretty easy.
And you guys know how to make your own dressings. I've given you guys plenty of dressings. My main one is the tahini one. We've got the carrot ginger one, like the Japanese. We've got avocado cilantro. I got you guys on dressings. Type of 1 if you want some good dressings, and I'll add a dressing to our follow-up meeting. Samantha said to add some curry powder to the dressing that you mentioned about the apple cider vinegar. I also use apple cider vinegar all the time. I went to the beach today. It was my little sister's birthday, and I brought with me a huge juice. I just juiced up like everything that was in my fridge, and I brought it in a thermos. And I also brought myself a huge salad from whatever was in the fridge, grabbed it, threw it in, and then dressing. I didn't have time to make anything, so I just brought myself a little tiny thing of apple cider vinegar, and that was it. So when you keep doing this, you don't really need anything. You don't really crave anything. I had like some beets and some tomatoes in there, and I was like, all right, I'm good. Like that's more than enough. It'll be delicious.
And something you just mentioned too with beets, if you're putting like any sort of like pickled vegetable on your salad, like a lot of times what I'll do too is just take whatever jar, like I pickle my own beets and stuff, but I'll like pour some of the liquid out into something else and maybe mix it with something and make it different. And then just use that to pour over. Or like if you like spicy, pepperoni juice is really good on top. It's like 0 calories. So you can do a lot of that stuff too. But basically dressing is usually a vinegar or something sour. So vinegar or a lemon base mixed with something sweet. So you can do dates, you can do maple syrup, you can do something like that. And then usually
I've been using pears as my sweetener, which is like a
yes. Yeah, that's and in season right now too. Berries are a great choice too. I love berries are like my favorite fruit to recommend to people because they're low calorie, high antioxidant, and they taste really good.
I have in my week 2 meal plan, I have a raspberry vinaigrette, which is with raspberries and apple cider vinegar and basil.
Yes.
And it's epic. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I have dressings are excellent because you're always just going to be having the salad. And when you think about, okay, how am I going to do this long term? Like those of you who have been doing this for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you're starting to feel good. Now the question is coming to you, but do I have to always do a Rebecca meal plan? Like, how do I live this lifestyle for real? And this is how you just always have a salad for dinner with a new dressing, and you get creative. And there's so many books out there, and there's so many recipe plans, but just try and organize yourself and keep yourself on a meal plan of some sort. Otherwise you'll go rogue, and then you'll just grab something that's in front of you.
Exactly.
So the structure is key.
That brings me to like meal prepping. I am huge on like whatever days you have off work, pick a day, do your prep. You can do lunch and dinner for the next, week, or you could just pick one lunch if you go to the office or something like that. Because for me, if I don't have things prepped, that's what I start doing is picking out little things. And a lot of times they're healthy things, but when I do that all day, it adds up.
Yes. Okay, I have one last question for you. Well, I have two, but this is an important one. Um, if if you could tell me, or let's see, how about this? Because most of my clients are middle-aged women. If you could tell a middle-aged woman um, what their exercise routine should be,
Mm.
what would that be?
Okay, let's assume this woman has no injuries and isn't like severely overweight, has some sort of complication that would not allow her to exercise fully. Okay, and you have what, 5 days available in the morning, 3 days? How many days are you looking to
What do
work
you
out?
recommend? What do you,
So
what's
I
a
would
good way to, the goal is to feel better, not necessarily to, you want to continue to lose weight. You're not going to lose all your weight because you're exercising, but just to tone up and feel good.
Okay. So basic recommendation is 150 minutes of cardio per week. So you can do that over a 5 day span, 30 minutes a day, whatever. But that's literally like from my personal training certification. Like it's supposed to be, everybody in America gets this much. Unfortunately, not very many people do, but 30 minutes of cardio every day, 5 days a week at least. And by cardio, I mean something that gets your heart rate elevated. Even better if you can do it uphill. And then I would say that, like, if you're just kind of like, I don't like using the term average because it sounds negative, but just in a neutral term, if you're an average person that's not training for any sort of like competition, or you don't have any like huge goals and you want to just lose a little bit of fat and like get yourself moving again, I would say that anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week of like some form of strength training. And there's different ways that you can do this. Like, and I switch it up a lot too. This is another recommendation is I got in the habit of a while. It's like Monday was back and biceps day. Tuesday was chest and triceps. Wednesday was legs, and I'd go through this thing and I would repeat that cycle every single week. And I came to a point where I plateaued. And then I started learning through the certification that like, your body needs to be quote unquote tricked. Like you have to kind of switch it up. You have to do different things. So sometimes that can mean switching the type of exercise. Sometimes that can mean going from, maybe I'm used to doing 3 sets of 10 reps of bicep curls. And I change that to where I lower the weight and I do 5 sets of 15 instead. Or like I'm used to holding the bar underhand and I'm doing curls this way. Now I do overhand and I do it this way. Really just tricking those muscles into, you want to create, like I said earlier, those little tears in the muscle to allow them to repair themselves later, which ultimately results in muscle gain. So even for someone that's not looking to be muscular, I highly recommend strength training. It will help protect your bones, your joints, help keep you upright longer, keep you going longer. And like I mentioned earlier too, higher muscle mass does contribute to greater fat loss because of the energy that's required to keep them going. So 5 days a week, cardio, 30 minutes a day, some form of strength training, 30 to 60 minutes. My goal would be 3 days a week. If you could get 5 in, even better, but 3 would be amazing.
Okay, so cardio, let's prescribe something to us. Let's say we do 30 minutes of jogging or like some kind of like the elliptical or jumping jacks. Because I have a routine that we do for detox and it's very mild. It's very just moving lymphatics. It's like yoga. So it's not really any of these things. It's mostly stretching. And during my cleansing period, we've been taught not to be doing any of that, which is fine.
Okay.
Which is fine because maybe this is just for people who are after. Like I only have my cleansing period, but I want to help people to do this long term and to build muscle afterwards because it's true. During the cleansing period, we've been taught not to do but muscle training and cardio because you're really just relaxing.
I agree with you. Yeah.
But afterwards, you definitely have to. And it's something that I definitely want to do. So let's say what is to be prescribed to somebody who's right after their cleanse, ready to build more muscle and cardio. So let's say it's like a half an hour of running.
And I will say too, that during your cleanse, even something like just tracking your steps on your phone and just get 10,000 steps a day. That's a really easy thing. Go for a walk around the block once or twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, whatever. It's really easy to get if you're on your feet, but go ahead. So for somebody that's off of your cleanse, that's looking to lose some fat, maybe gain some muscle, both.
Yes. I think definitely losing the fat a little bit, but they probably just lost a lot of fat from the cleanse. So now they just want to gain the muscle and be healthy and get tighter and stronger and be optimal. So I think that let's say, like, I think, what do you think is a good 30-minute cardio? What's something that you recommend to people? 30-minute.
Like you mentioned earlier, treadmill or the elliptical is great. Bike, stationary bike is amazing. Even like, I think you said something about jump roping. I know that can be hard on some people's knees. So like maybe less impact if they're doing something like that. But if you can't jump rope or you can't do jumping jacks, like even just like standing in place and, putting your arms up and down and mimicking the movement without jumping is better than nothing. And I think, it could even be something there's called plyometric training, where it's just very like, it's very bursty, things where it's like box jumps and like things where you're using a lot of momentum. I know not everybody can do that, but just kind of like keeping the body moving. So you can do like, a squat to like go up, even if you can't jump, just kind of explode a little. And that really gets the muscles going and gets your heart rate up too. Even something as simple as like sit-ups or push-ups. You can't do push-ups, do them from your knees. You should be able to do at least a few. And I think most people, in my experience, most people's biggest issue is that they don't push themselves enough. And I fall into this too, where it's like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that's when you need to keep going. I get it. It does hurt. Your body is not used to it. It is uncomfortable. But over time, you will get used to it. And that's going to be the biggest way that you're going to see more results, is going past that. So like, you do 3 push-ups from your knees and it's like, oh my God, I can't get a full one in again. I don't care. Do a half of one. Do something, push yourself more than what you think you can do. And doing that all the time is going to really help you feel good too, because once you start accomplishing that and you're like, holy crap, I could only do 3 push-ups and now I'm at, 17, like it feels amazing. So
yes, I love that. And also it's so part of this whole program of like just pushing yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone.
yeah.
And you see that progress and you notice that you can do more. It's like, oh wow, even doing my program, my exercise in the morning, my mom was saying, other people who were in the cleanse were saying, oh hey, I can move my leg different. Oh hey, my abs are starting to burn a little bit from last week. Oh hey, my arms hurt from doing this little exercise. And you can tell that it's actually working and it's actually doing something. So
yes,
being consistent and doing it consistently. So let's say we prescribe 30 minutes of running or jumping jacks or treadmill every day for 5 days, and then also Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 30 minutes or 60 minutes of weight training. And what
I think
would
if
that
you're
look like? Someone who is, let's say they don't have a gym, what would that look like?
okay, so I think if you're new and you don't have a gym, let's start with 30, because we don't want to get to a point of exhaustion. And like you're mentioning too, if they're on a juice cleanse, let's not go too hard on that, because you're just going to wear yourself out. But so we'll use those parameters. So we'll say 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, right? And you're at home. So I would still kind of break it up into like upper body and lower body, so that you give your body, you're like, so here's the issue. If say you do biceps today and then tomorrow you do your back, well, when you're doing back exercises, your bicep is the muscle that works along with the back, right? So like you're going to end up using them a little bit again, and you're going to end up wearing yourself out. So what I like to do, if you have 3 days a week, I would say, okay, let's do upper body. So we'll do back, we'll do biceps, we'll do triceps, we'll do shoulders. And you can do simple movements. Like I was kind of mentioning earlier with like the push-ups, that'll do chest and triceps at the same time. And one thing, it's kind of funny. I would like came up with this when I was in this like leadership course I was taking. I had to do this challenge. I'll just use this candle as an example. Pretend this is a can of soup. And what I was telling, we called it a soup can workout, or I called it that. And you would just do, okay, bicep curls. And yeah, this doesn't weigh very much. It's probably a pound or 2. But if you do 100 of these, it weighs a lot. So I just tell people like, grab some soup cans, and do as many as you can. And then, we can do like overhead presses, and you can even do like where you bend over and you do like a tricep kickback this way. And, we'll do the arms one day. And then say that's Monday. Then on Wednesday, we can do legs. So legs are really easy to do at home, especially if you don't have any injuries. All you do is squat. So you can, stand up. You don't have to have any weight on you. Trust me, you do 100 of those, you're going to feel sore. And squats really engage a lot of the different leg muscles. So you get a bunch of them taken care of at the same time. And then, on Friday, we can go to abs. And so abs, I'll do like crunches. If people have any back issues, the medicine ball, or not the medicine ball, the Bosu balls, those can be a little bit more comfortable. They even have like certain kind of pads you can put under your back if that's an issue. And then instead of like crunching forward with the top, you can also just do like little flutters with your feet, like put your hands underneath your butt while you're laying on the floor and kick your feet up and down. And time yourself for a minute, you know?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. I could go on forever and ever and ever, but I'm gonna cut this soon. We just have a lot of really interesting stuff going on in the messages about I don't know, how do you get B12, creatine, iron, other vitamins and minerals? Do you have to take supplement to balance it out? Real quick.
No, yeah, I don't take, well, okay, so B12, I do take one sublingual, so the under the tongue one once a week. I have to go get my levels checked again because the last time I checked, I was actually fine. I just started taking them because it is good for energy, and I have been expending a lot more energy. Creatine, you know, I just started reading about creatine and diving into it a lot more. There are vegan versions of creatine. Normally it's secreted by animals, but I've actually heard some really good stuff about creatine. The one thing that I will say though is that it does have you hold on to more water, so you can look fluffier with it. You won't look as shredded, but I've heard it's really good for recovery and building muscle. And I don't know a whole lot on it, so I don't want to like give advice on it, but there are vegan brands out there. I've seen them on Amazon. I actually purchased one, but I haven't opened it yet. So I'm going to read some more about it. And then B12, if you're drinking any sort of, we mentioned this earlier, but like if you're drinking any sort of plant milk, it's usually fortified with iron and B12 anyways. It's probably enough for you. B12 isn't something that you necessarily need every day because it's stored as you take it. So it will usually last depending on how much you have for, 4 to 7 days. Iron, I don't take any supplements for that either, but lots of dark leafy greens. That's a big thing.
Dark sprouts and you'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, doing the intermittent fasting, juice fasting makes me struggle with core body temperature. Rebounding is great, I find. Oh, rebounding is great for an exercise. Definitely going to go into that one day. But doing intermittent fasting, juice fasting makes me struggle with core body temperature, makes you cold. I think that they went into that a bit. Oh, I was having hot flashes or something with my body changing during the cleanse also. I get very cold. Cold is off the thyroid. Maybe it is that I have low thyroid too. So this is super interesting. And your body temperature it's kind of, I think, pretty typical for people to get cold during the cleanse.
Yeah.
That's a very typical detox symptom. So that is just quantity, eat more, right? What do you think, Danielle?
That would be my assumption as well. And like, I think it would also be good for those of you that haven't gotten any blood tests done, like just a basic panel, look at your iron, your B12, cholesterol, all these kind of things. And just to kind of get an idea of where you're at too, because our bodies, I'm learning more and more like how complex we are. Like there's so many things that could be off in us. And so I think a lot of times just making sure that some of those basic nutrients are being met, even if that's before a cleanse, because you probably aren't, if you're interested in this program and you're working this program, you probably aren't getting adequate enough. Most Americans don't, as far as micronutrients go. So all the plant nutrients basically. But yeah, I would say like blood panels are really important and just to stay in tune with your doctor too. But I will say, be careful though, because even my own doctor, I ended up switching doctors recently because once I told him that I was vegan, he didn't have any knowledge on it. And we got to remember that doctors are not required to be nutritionists. They are there to help with major problems they only end up having about an hour of nutrition studies through their entire PhD program. So I would say doctors are great resources to go for tests. They're good for obviously chronic diseases. They're good for managing a lot of things, and they're really good for prescribing if you need something temporarily to fix a condition like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, whatever, to get you back into a normal state. But long-term, working with a dietitian or a nutritionist, especially if they're familiar with plant-based nutrition, definitely will get you better answers. So just be careful what you hear from your doctors, because yes, they are smart, but they don't know a lot about nutrition. So
thank you so much. I just want to say that I have my classes every Wednesday moving forward, and based on what everybody's talking about with the mother-father gene and genetic testing, that I don't know if you guys know about the mother-father gene and the gene mutation, but a lot of people have autoimmune diseases and things that are going on mental illness, things like that. Thyroid problems have this mother-father gene mutation. That's something that I just started learning about, and there's a lot of information on gene testing now. So those of you who are interested in it, next week is supposed to be digestion and elimination, colonics, enemas, and stuff like that. I have a nutritionist that does really interesting work on genetic testing, so I want to have him come in as a guest speaker. If I can get him to come in, I might swap that in for next week, since you guys are really interested in this right now.
Yeah.
But either way, we're going to be doing digestion and elimination of colonics, next week if we can't get him to come in. But I'm definitely going to have somebody come in to talk about this genetic testing and this mother-father gene and just general, all the stuff that we're talking about. So stay tuned and stay with me until I get that guy in. We can have that. And that's what these questions are for, so that I can find the right resources of experts that can come in and speak on that. So Danielle, thank you for being our expert this week. And thank you for all the wisdom and your energy. And we can't wait to see you next time and be part of this community.
Well, thank you for your time and having me on your show or your group today, Rebecca. And thank you everybody for all the questions and all the amazing feedback and everything too. It's been really great interacting with everyone.
This was such a good one. This was really, really, really special. So Danielle, you definitely made it special, and all of you made it special as well by asking such awesome questions. I've never seen you guys be so engaged. So Danielle, you definitely created a party here. Thanks for coming. And I will see you all next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.